The play of the waves outside in the cold sun glittered on his monocle. His movements seemed to me deliberately coarse, vulgar. The blood rushed to my face again and stayed there. And yet, you see, I guessed it might be so, that we should have a formal disrobing of the bride, a ritual from the brothel. Sheltered as my life had been, how could I have failed, even in the world of prim Bohemia in which I lived, to have heard hints of his world? He stripped me, gourmand that he was, as if he were stripping the leaves off an artichoke. But do not imagine much finesse about it. This artichoke was no particular treat for the diner, nor was he yet in any greedy haste. He approached his familiar treat with a wary appetite, and when nothing but my scarlet palpitating core remained, I saw in the mirror the living image of an etching by Rops from the collection he had shown me when our engagement permitted us to be alone together. The child with her stick-like limbs, naked but for her button boots, her gloves shielding her face with her hand, as though her face were the last repository of her modesty, and the old monocled lecher who examined her, limb by limb. He in his London tailoring, she bare as a lamb chop. Most pornographic of all confrontations. And so my purchaser unwrapped his bargain. And as at the opera, when I had first seen my flesh in his eyes, I was aghast to feel myself stirring. At once he closed my legs like a book, and I saw again the rare movement on his lips that meant he smiled. Not yet. Later. Anticipation is the greater part of pleasure, my little love. And I began to shudder like a racehorse before a race, yet also with a kind of fear, for I felt both a strange impersonal arousal at the thought of love, and at the same time a repugnance I could not stifle for his arum lilies that filled my bedroom in great glass jars, those undertakers' lilies with the heavy pollen that powders your fingers as if you had dipped them in turmeric. The lilies I always associate with him, that are white and stain you. This scene from a voluptuary's life was now abruptly terminated. It turns out he has business to attend to, his estates, his companies. Even on your honeymoon? Even then, said the red lips that kissed me. Before he left me alone with my bewildered senses, a wet silken brush from his beard, a hint of the pointed tip of the tongue. Disgruntled, I wrapped a negligee of antique lace around me to sip the little breakfast of hot chocolate the maid brought me. After that, since it was second nature to me, there was nowhere to go but the music room, and soon I settled down at my piano. Yet only a series of subtle discords flowed from beneath my fingers, out of tune. Only a little out of tune, but I'd been blessed with perfect pitch and could not bear to play any more. Sea breezes are bad for pianos. We shall need a resident piano tuner on the premises if I'm to continue with my studies. I flung down the lid in a little fury of disappointment. What should I do now? How shall I pass the long sea-lit hours until my husband beds me? I shivered to think of that. His library seemed the source of his habitual odor of Russian leather. Row upon row of calf-bound volumes, brown and olive, with gilt lettering on their spines, the octavo in brilliant scarlet morocco, a deep-buttoned leather sofa to recline on, a lectern carved like a spread eagle that held open upon it an edition of Huysmans' Là-bas from some over-exquisite private press, It had been bound like a missile, in brass, with gems of coloured glass. The rugs on the floor, deep, pulsing blues of heaven and red of the heart's dearest blood, came from Isfahan and Bokhara. The dark panelling gleamed. There was the lulling music of the sea and a fire of apple logs. The flames flickered along the spines inside a glass-fronted case that held books still crisp. It meant nothing to me. I squinted at a title or two: The Initiation, The Key of Mysteries, The Secret of Pandora's Box, and yawned. Nothing here to detain a 17-year-old girl waiting for her first embrace. I should have liked, best of all, a novel in yellow paper. I wanted to curl up on the rug before the blazing fire, lose myself in a cheap towel, in a cheap novel, munch sticky liquor chocolates. If I rang for them, a maid would bring me chocolates. Nevertheless, I opened the doors of that bookcase idly to browse, and I think I knew by some tingling of the fingertips, even before I opened that slim volume with no title at all on the spine, what I should find inside it. When he showed me the Rops, newly brought, dearly prized, had he not hinted that he was also a connoisseur of such things? Yet I had not bargained for this, the girl with tears hanging on her cheeks like stuck pearls, her cunt a split fig below the great globes of her buttocks, on which the knotted tail a man in a black mask fingered with his free hand his prick, that curved upwards like the scimitar he held. The picture had a caption, reproof of curiosity. My mother, with all the precision of her eccentricity, had told me what it was that lovers did. I was innocent, but not naive. The Adventures of Eulalie at the Harem of Grand Turk had been printed, according to the flyleaf, in Amsterdam in 1748, a rare collector's piece. Had some ancestor brought it back himself from that northern city, or had my husband bought it for himself from one of those dusty little bookshops on the left bank, where an old man peers at you through spectacles an inch thick, daring you to inspect his wares? I turned the pages in anticipation of fear. The print was rusty. Here was another steel engraving. Immolation of the wives of the Sultan. I knew enough for what I saw in that book to make me gasp. There was a pungent intensification of the odor of leather that suffused his library. His shadow fell across the massacre. My little nun has found the prayer books, has she? He demanded, with a curious mixture of mockery and relish. Then, seeing my painful, furious bewilderment, he laughed at me aloud, snatched the book from my hands, and put it down on the sofa. Have the nasty pictures scared baby? Baby mustn't play with grown-ups' toys until she's learned how to handle them, must she? Then he kissed me, and with, this time, no reticence. He kissed me and laid his hand imperatively upon my breast beneath the sheath of ancient lace. I stumbled on the winding stair that led to the bedroom, to the carved gilded bed on which he had been conceived. I stammered foolishly, "We've not taken luncheon yet, and, besides, it is broad daylight." He made me put on my choker, the family heirloom of one woman who had escaped the blade. With trembling fingers I fastened the thing about my neck. It was cold as ice, and chilled me.